How do we master detachment as empaths? Hi, my name is Leah Chantel. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm talking about how do we master detachment. This is a big one, and it's kind of like learning to live with this chocolate cake that's always in your fridge. And you used to love chocolate cake and gorge on chocolate cake, and I think we all had this when we were children because we had Halloween, and then we'd have Thanksgiving, then we'd have, or if you're in Canada, Thanksgiving comes first, but I digress. Then you have Christmas, and then you have New Year's, and you have all these holidays, and there's always sweets, right? So when we're kids, we learn to love sweets, and we can really have as much as we want when we're kids in a way, because we can't really have alcohol yet, we can't get into drugs or get into too much trouble because we're still children. And so we learn to indulge in a lot of sweets because it's really encouraged by society. And in the same way, we long for approval from parents, we long for approval from teachers and caregivers, and even our own peers and our own classes, because that's the way we fit in. And thousands of years ago, when we were a primitive society, we had to fit in, we had to get along with others in order to remain part of the tribe, even if it wasn't always fair, or people were being dominant and being unfair, and we had to submit. Sometimes we had to do that thousands of years ago in order to survive. And there was this old parable from Confucius that really celebrated the son who welcomed his stepmom into his life, but the stepmom was really abusive. And the story goes on to say that the stepmom would beat him and starve him and give him all of the chores and work him to death. But even so, he would love his stepmom. And that story is interesting. Like, there's some wisdom to it, because sometimes we're in abusive relationships in life and we have to make it work for whatever reason. Let's say, for example, you're married and you have a small child, and you have a husband that is emotionally abusive but treats the child well, and you're worried that you'll lose custody. Like, he's not a threat to your child, he's just really mean to you, but you realize you're going to lose custody of the child if you go to court and try to get a divorce at that point in your life. There are situations, and I don't judge anybody when they need to stay sometimes in an abusive relationship. Sometimes it makes sense for legal reasons or practical reasons. Having said that, I think the best way is to get rid of abusive people from your life. It is the best. Having said that, if there's a practical concern or there's money issues or whatever reasons why people can't leave, sometimes they need to stay. And that's okay too. As long as you learn how to live with not needing their approval. Whether you're in a healthy relationship or not, actually, mastering detachment and not needing approval from anyone is going to make your life better. If you're in an abusive relationship, if you don't need approval from the abusive person, you learn to ignore their abuse. And as long as they're not physically endangering you or your children or your family, you can kind of just ignore them and let them be idiots and just leave them alone, right? And if you're in a healthy relationship, if you're a bit more detached, you're not going to need approval from your partner as much. That's going to be easier in a healthy relationship for your partner to be able to manage, because they're not going to feel like they're your vessel for happiness, right? You're not attached to them. And so they're going to feel more relaxed and they're going to feel good in the relationship. So mastering detachment is a powerful tool, regardless if you have negative or positive people in your life. Having said that, it almost goes against our primitive brain. Our primitive brain is the one that wants to keep messaging when somebody's ignoring us. Our primitive brain is the one that wants to beg for the person to stay when they threaten to leave. And when people are doing these techniques that trigger our primitive brain and makes us scared that something bad is going to happen, it's usually a sign that they're doing something to manipulate us, right? And so what we need to do instead in response to that is be detached. So when somebody threatens to leave, let them leave. When somebody stops talking to you, you stop talking to them, right? That's actually the best way to respond, is just be detached and let things go when people are not behaving well. Because when they're not behaving well, they're trying to usually manipulate you to get something that they want, or maybe it's not even you, maybe it's something else that they want in life. And it's better to just let people go when they behave badly. You know, it's not worth hating yourself or hating the other person or feeling negative about the whole situation. Although it's normal to feel grief or feel sad when somebody goes, you know, who might have been in your life in the past. It is normal to feel some sadness. As long as you understand that it's their time to go and that this grief is just part of the process, it doesn't mean that the situation is wrong or that you should be trying to get them back. You know, that's the wrong approach to take. That wastes a lot of time and energy in your life. And when you learn to master detachment in your relationships, because you're suffering a lot less, you know, you can actually achieve a lot more of your goals in your life. You have time and energy to really go for things that matter to you because you're not wasting time on relationships that are working out. I mean, women these days, there's a lot of things like situationships and dating going on. And I mean, I don't know which side of the fence you're on with that, if you agree with it or don't disagree with it. I see it kind of as a time waster. That's my personal opinion. So the way that I approach that is if people just want to do that, I just say no and I let them go and I let them do what they want to do, right? And that's how everybody should approach it. If you don't agree with the way somebody's trying to approach relationship, you don't have to get into a moralistic argument with them about it, but let them go. Just say, I don't agree, or that's not for me. And then don't go in the fridge looking for the chocolate cake. You know, don't go looking for their approval. Don't go looking for them to change their mind. Leave them alone. And you have to have that discipline, like, you know, there's a chocolate cake there and you know you want to text and you know you want to get approval, but you just leave them alone. And when you flex that muscle, over time it gets easier. Pretty soon you really don't want the chocolate cake. You're like, last time I ate that chocolate cake, it tasted good in my mouth in the immediate moment, but then my stomach didn't feel so good after. Isn't that kind of a good metaphor for that text that you send to the person that you ignore them? And the moment you feel better because you're like, oh, maybe they'll respond this time. But then you feel worse when they don't and then they ignore you another time, right? So I think where letting go can get really tricky is when we've known the person for a long time, because sometimes we build a relationship and it's good in the beginning and then people change. Unfortunately, this can just happen at any time. And when people change, you have to be ready to be detached, and let them go when that moment comes, if and when they change. And in truth, we don't really have control of our relationships. And we don't really want control either, because that would be a lot of work to try to force everybody to do the right thing, right? To force people to stay in their marriages or their relationships or their friendships and do the right thing. It's kind of exhausting being the morality police. And so it's a lot better to just let people go when they behave badly. You know, let them figure it out for themselves. It's not your job to be their spiritual teacher and to teach them the right thing to do, right? I mean, instead, maybe you want to write your own book and put your time and energy into that, or create videos or create content for people, right? Rather than wasting time trying to chase after people who aren't behaving well. And there's a lot of that going on now because people are figuring out that they can kind of get certain results. Like, for example, some of these manipulative techniques are used, you know, in dating, and it's like, oh, somebody will be attracted to you and want to chase after you if you ignore them or make fun of them or are negative or rude to them. These ideas are kind of floating around out there, and then more and more people are trying these different ideas because they think it's going to produce a certain kind of result for them. And the way to not let these ideas proliferate and cause more damage to other people is when you stop that behavior with you, because you've detached, and when you see the bad behavior come up, you just let it go. You don't give it any energy, you don't give it your time, you just detach and you go back into the things that are your peaceful, productive activities. And as empaths, we gravitate towards those peaceful, grounding activities like going out for a walk and going to yoga. It's important to remember that when we're out in society and we're dealing with a bit more skeptical, five sensory people, a lot of those people really enjoy uncertainty. They like drama. they like getting people emotional and upset and getting that feedback and that validation. I'm not saying all are like that, but many people are like that. And so they'll play these sort of little games and techniques on other people, especially when they see empathic people with their hearts wide open and they've shared about their emotions and things. They're like, ooh, this will be a fun person to play. That's why you want to be careful, like I said in a previous video, about sharing your vulnerabilities, because it's kind of like, hey, I'm gonna wave a white flag, come take advantage of me, it'll be fun. Rather, it's better to just keep your vulnerabilities to yourself and share your vulnerability in a very practical way with people who are like that, and build trust over time. You know, sometimes you have new people in your life and you're not really sure which side of the fence they fall on yet. Maybe they're not sure if they're an empathic person or if they're a more skeptical person, and you just need to do practical activities together to figure it out. That's okay. You can do that just as long as you don't get attached. You stay detached if they ever behave badly, and you just let them go. But it's like a muscle. It takes discipline. It's like going to the gym. You have to do it regularly and you have to practice. You know, if you're out of shape, then you're out of shape, and it's harder to do. But if you listen to some of my advice and some of these videos that I'm putting up on YouTube, you'll get better at it over time, and your life will get better too. People will treat you better, and you'll have more time for the things that really matter to you, that are your purpose. And we all need to prioritize more time into these things in order to channel our greatest lives into creation. I hope you enjoyed my tips today about detachment and how to stop looking for approval from other people, especially when they have a different value system from you. And as empaths, we value certain things, but we have to remember that not everybody is exactly the same as us empathically. They may have the potential to become like us in a way. Having said that, we don't really know who is going to be exactly like us or who is going to be different until we really take a long time to build trust and get to know people, right? Even if they claim to be empaths, you don't really know who's an empath until you really know them for a long time and you've built that trust over time. And even when you have that beautiful relationship, we're all humans, and sometimes people change. Like, I've seen it with empaths. Sometimes they were beautiful empathic people, and then one year they just changed their mind. They wanted to go back to being a skeptic, intellectual type person, which is okay. I have no judgment of that, but it does happen. So just give people your trust when they deserve it, and detach when they don't deserve it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely hit like if you enjoyed it, and hit subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. Have a great week, everyone.